What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over the weapon buffs and nerfs that happened in this year's Winterfest update. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, comment down below what you think of these changes and if anything changed for you as a result of them. And if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolvedJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So I've talked about these changes in the video I made with this with the Winterfest update, but now having had several days to play with them, I'm going to kind of go over the impact of them and if I think the meta changed in any way. We're going to start off with assault rifles since there were several changes here. The Deadeye AR, Enforced AR, and Tactical AR all got changes in this update. So the Deadeye AR has dominated Chapter 7 thus far, and in the Winterfest update, Fortnite reduced its hipfire accuracy and increased its recoil. Both of these changes were very minor in my opinion and did not affect how I feel about the weapon at all. Since red dot ARs were introduced to Fortnite, I feel like they have really struggled to kind of balance them and have them be useful and good, but not just like dominate the game. And how low recoil they are, I feel like is a massive contributing factor to that. The Deadeye AR has very, very, very low recoil. And even with this, increase to its recoil, it's still an incredibly low recoil weapon, making it very easy to use. And nothing has changed as a result of this kind of balance pass. The hipfire, I feel like you'll maybe notice it, but it's not like it was incredible there anyways. I feel like most people were using this weapon because of how much it dominated long range fights, and it was okay enough in close range to combo with a pump. The Enforcer AR got +1 damage for every rarity, and its bloom reduced a bit. And the bloom on this weapon was never really that bad. When it comes to third-person weapons, a lot of people don't want to use them because of bloom, but it wasn't like the Enforcer AR had an absurd amount of bloom. It was a high damage, low fire rate weapon, and that archetype of weapon really lends itself to long-range fights. And when we're comparing a third-person bloom weapon to the Deadeye AR, which is red dot and perfectly accurate, like no recoil, it was hard to justify using the Enforcer AR. I think when we have red dot and third-person ARs in the loot pool, the red dot option is kind of always going to be the premier choice for longer range fights. And the Enforcer AR, like archetype of weapon, is more geared towards long range fights. So it's like a weird kind of conflict within the meta of like these weapons being in the loot pool at the same time kind of makes the Enforcer AR irrelevant in my opinion. The Deadeye is better at close range, it's better at medium range, and it's better at long range if your aim is good. If you really struggle to aim, then maybe the Enforcer AR just doing more damage can work out for you. But with how this season plays, I think the Deadeye is significantly better than the Enforcer. And then finally, the Tactical AR got its recoil reduced and its reload speed increased. Both of these were already strengths the weapon had. It was very low recoil, very accurate. While it is a third-person weapon, the bloom was very minuscule, and it reloaded really quick. That's kind of always been how the weapon functioned. And so increasing those strengths a little bit, I feel like doesn't really change how I feel about the weapon too much. And so far, in my opinion, the AR meta, nothing really changed at all. The nerfs to the Deadeye didn't affect it enough to make one of the other options more appealing. And even with those other options getting buffed, they didn't do enough of a buff to really make it shine. Like it just got a little bit better in the case of the Enforcer AR, and then the Tactical AR got its strengths improved a little bit. I think what could have made these weapons more appealing is if they changed the fire rate of the Enforcer AR. I think that could maybe make it something worthwhile because it's like a very slow, hard-hitting weapon that just doesn't fare that well in medium range. And then the TAC AR's main downside, in my opinion, in addition to being third person, is its range, and that wasn't really addressed at all. And as I kind of said, when we have red dot ARs in the loot pool and third person ARs in the loot pool, it's hard to justify using the third person one unless the red dot one is really bad. So if I was in charge of balancing this season, I think the Deadeye AR having a significant amount of recoil would maybe, make those other options worth using in some cases. But as it is now, I think the Deadeye AR is still just going to dominate. Shotguns are a similar story somewhat. The Sovereign Shotgun did get buffed, but these changes weren't enough to really change the meta in my opinion. Fortnite said it got increased damage when they put out their blog post, but looking at the stats we have now compared to what I can find of them being listed before the update, nothing seemed to change at all as far as damage goes. What did change, however, is going to be the ADS fire rate. The Sovereign has 2 fire rates. If you hip fire it, it will shoot faster. If you aim down sight, it will shoot slower. The fire rate when aimed in was increased from 0.98 and now it is 1.08. So you get less of a penalty for aiming in now than you did previously, which is a nice way to buff this weapon because that's kind of its main downside. In my opinion, is that in a lot of fights you want to aim in with it, but aiming in makes you shoot slower, and then you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of that in the heat of the moment. The spread was also improved, which is a nice change because it had a very large spread, which made it very inconsistent. And improving the spread will make it more consistent if your aim is good, but it's still not like the most accurate or the most consistent shotgun. It still feels the same. It just feels a little bit better. And then the reload speed was also improved, which is nice, but it's not really going to make or break the weapon. I think if you already liked the Sovereign shotgun, this is a good buff for you, especially if you're someone who aimed in with it a good amount. That fire rate being improved is going to help you out a lot because one of your main weaknesses got improved a little bit. But I don't think this change was enough to really sway your opinion if you preferred one of the other shotguns. If you've been loving the Iron Pump, I think you're still going to love the Iron Pump. If you've been loving the Twin Hammer shotguns, I think you're still going to love the Twin Hammer shotguns. The Sovereign shotgun is in a spot where it's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none type situation. When you aim in with it, you know, you can hit pretty hard shots because the pellet spread is really tight and it has a good amount of range, but it also doesn't have just the raw damage output that a pump does. You know, it's not as good as a pump in that regard. And then while it is a somewhat spammy shotgun when you hip fire it, it's not as spammy as like the Twin Hammer shotgun. So it's like I said, it's a weird middle ground, and it's like a jack of all trades, master of none type thing. Some people really like that, but others don't. And I think I would still prefer the Iron Pump to the Sovereign shotgun. And like I said, I think your opinion on this is probably going to remain the same as it was previously. The Sniper got +5 damage for every rarity, and this brings the headshot damage up to 178, 186, and 196 for the gold one. So not enough to one-hit a full HP opponent in zero build, but enough to be relevant. If you hit somebody for 196, that should be a fight that you are very capable of cleaning up. Oftentimes people aren't going to be full HP, you know, 24/7 anyways, but that leaves the person with 54 health. And so they're weak enough to where you should be able to push that kill out or swap to an AR or something and get the kill. Snipers are another thing that is somewhat hard to balance, especially when we have a dominant red dot AR in the loot pool. It's kind of harder to justify using the sniper. But snipers are hard to balance in the sense that like they either feel not good enough or really overpowered. And I think this sniper is actually pretty well balanced. It's solid, it's good. I think it's good enough, but it's not so overpowered that it just dominates the game. And that leads a lot of people to ignoring it, especially for other options. Like I'd rather have double mobility than the sniper. And the Deadeye AR is good enough at long range where I often don't find myself missing a sniper. If we didn't have the Deadeye AR in the loot pool at all, and it was just like Enforcer AR, Attack AR, I think the sniper would be incredibly relevant and incredibly good. The Deadeye AR just really dominates the season. The SMGs also did get some changes, and if you do like sniping, this could matter to you because the Holo SMG got its damage range improved, which is really nice because this was the main weakness of the weapon. A lot of these changes I talked about, it's kind of like they improved the weapon strengths a little bit, and it's like that doesn't really change how you feel about it. But the Holo SMG getting a damage range improvement helps a lot because the range on it was so kind of like pathetic before. And it's still nothing special as far as range goes. It's not like you're suddenly going to be melting people across the map with this weapon, but it doesn't feel as bad as it did before. And if you do like sniping and you snipe a lot when you have it in your inventory, you could probably run this SMG instead of an AR and kind of be a little bit more lethal in close to medium range. And when this kind of SMG is starting to drop off, you probably would have been sniping anyways if you're someone who snipes a lot when you have it in your inventory. So I think that's kind of the main changes that maybe impact the game. The sniper buff and the Holo SMG buff, they do kind of go well together if you like sniping a lot, but you're still going to notice the SMG's range lacking in like 20-30 meters. Like once you get into any sort of decent range, it's going to be rough. And then the dual SMGs also got buffed. They now have more range. Since they're hipfire only, the more range I feel like doesn't really change too much. You're limited in the ranges that you can kind of consistently hit shots. They also have a larger mag size and they do reload faster. And while this is an improvement for the weapon, it's still not really something I want to use because I very rarely want to use more than two weapons. Like this season, I would like to run pump, AR, double mobility, and heals. And that makes it hard to justify using the SMG as an SMG. And so the buff was nice. If you like running 3 guns, you know, try this out. You will probably dominate close range, shooting at iron pump and then swapping to this. But I think most players are probably going to prefer to have that added utility of the mobility items. But that is going to be it for this video and the kind of changes that happened. Overall, I don't think the meta changed too much at all. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.